Well, it is just a minute after or so after 7, so I'll call the workshop to order for January 8th. And as you know, or know what's going to happen is, I'm sure Sam will repeat some of this, we have many different candidates at different times. There will be the 20 minutes, and I'll say 1 minute when it's 19, and at the end of 20 minutes, that's it. We have 5 different questions. And if there's time, there'll be some open questions from the council, or even if you have a question to ask, that's fine. But I would just ask that people be concise and be aware of the fact that if you've only answered 1 or 2 questions, then that's the way it is. So, and of course, some of you may be very brief, but that is your option. So with that, Sam, do you have anything else to offer? Samantha will read the questions.
No.
And I'll call the first one up, which is Walwant Buller. Welcome. Hi.
Okay, question number 1 is please introduce yourself and detail why you applied to be on the Fairview City Council.
My name is Walwant Buller. I want to apply for city because I want to involve in the city, and there's some things I don't like, especially the police department. They are having some issues, and I'll see if I can get connected to, if I get elected, and see if I can make changes.
Number 2, do you have any current or past business, personal, school, or organization membership relationships with any of the current council members? If so, how do you feel the relationships will impact your decision-making process?
No, I don't have any issues.
Okay. Number 3, what experience or knowledge do you have that uniquely qualifies you for this position?
I've been in this position before. I got elected, and after that, some reason I have to resign.
Okay. Number 4, what do you view as the biggest challenges or concerns facing Fairview in the next year and the next 5 years? Do you have experience facing any similar challenges?
I can say about I'm a businessman, and I always have every day have challenges in my business, and that's my job to solve it. And 99% out of 100 I get success.
Okay, number 5, if appointed to City Council, what would be your top goals or priorities to accomplish during your tenure?
To keep Fairview safe. That's my main priority.
Okay, and now open questions from the council.
Just press your buttons. Okay, Councilor Prompt.
Yeah, Walwant, you, in your opening statement, you said you addressed questions or problems with the police department. Would you like to expand on that, what you mean? We're talking about funding problems or staffing problems?
And also, I listen every day because I stay in the 223rd and Halsey, and people, they always come and, you know, this police need to do this, police need to do this, and I cannot do anything if I'm not in that issue.
Thank you. Councilor Barton Mullins.
Hi, Beaumont. Would you be willing to raise taxes a minimal or small amount, say $1 or $2 a month at the most, to be able to ensure staffing of 16 full-time officers for the police?
I will look at the budget first, what we have. And after that, if there's a possible, then we can ask the people if they're going to work.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Creameyer.
What's your position on coming in to the Budget Committee and if you were voted onto the council this evening, as far as would you be in favor of dipping into city reserves to balance the budget, or should the budget be balanced and approved without having to dip into reserves?
Cities
I'm sorry, what was that?
for the reserve.
Yes.
Anyone else? Yes. Did you have anything that you'd like to ask us? Okay. Well, thank you very, very much. We appreciate your time and your interest. Okay. At the end of the meeting, we will be voting on the position. Okay. The next one is Keith Hudina. No, we don't have to wait for the whole thing. Okay, oh, time.
Hi,
Okay,
Keith.
Keith.
I have 5 set questions for you, and then council will do an open question time for you. We have 20 minutes. If we're not done in 20 minutes, it will be cut off at 20 minutes. So just give you a heads up on that. So first question, please introduce yourself and detail why you applied to be on the Fairview City Council.
Well, my name is Keith Cooter, and I reside at 1603 Northeast 207th Place. City Council has been on my mind since essentially when I started on Planning Commission back in 2007. Former City Council member Jim Rays, who recommended me for Planning Commission, said he felt that I would be a good fit for that. At the same time, the same evening said, hey, just planting a seed, you might want to think about going into City Council after a little while too. And I decided at that point that that was a goal. I wanted to serve a certain amount of time, at least a couple of terms on Planning Commission, kind of get my feet under me, get an idea about how the city was run, what was going on, so that I could come into and try to run for City Council with something behind me as opposed to just blindly going in. Another reason I wanted to run for city, wanted to do this is I believe in volunteering. I believe in being a part of my community. I believe that volunteering and getting involved is an essential part of any community. I estimate conservatively over the last 19 plus years, I've probably donated at least 4,500 hours. But that's between Planning Commission, volunteering with my church, as well as volunteering with Reynolds School District. I believe in being a part of something that's bigger than myself and trying to make it better.
Okay. Number 2, do you have any current or past business, personal, school, or organizational membership relationships with any of the current counselors? If so, how do you feel the relationships will impact your decision-making process?
Good question. Casually, I've experience or relationships with a number of you throughout the years. Councilor Prom, actually, we met at a West Columbia Gorge Chamber of Commerce meeting years ago. You also came out to Access Design Group to do some evaluation of some of their work systems and their environment. Both my wife and I have worked for Access Design Group, and so we've met a few times over the years. Councilor Creameyer, our daughters played volleyball together this last fall. And myself, I have had both a business banking account as well as a personal banking account and credit union. I no longer have those accounts, but my oldest daughter still does. And we see each other. It's not a big deal. Councilor Burton Mullins, you and I worked together last spring on a Friends of Fairview cleanup project, working on picking up trash along Salish Pond's walkways. I guess that's just to say I've got casual acquaintances with many, but whether or not they would influence my decision, no. My thoughts are my own. I love to take input from all sources and try to assimilate them and see get as much information as I can. But in the end, my thoughts are my own, and I would say without a doubt that any relationships that I have with existing city council members would not influence any decision that I made.
Okay. Number 3, what experience or knowledge do you have that uniquely qualifies you for this position?
First and foremost, I would have to say my time with Planning Commission. Being on Planning Commission since 2007, being vice chair 1 year, chair 1 year. Throughout that time, we've done a number of projects with the city and with the residents. Two that come to mind that were rather big were the signed code amendments as well as Wetlands Protection Act in order to comply with Title IX. These were big projects, lengthy projects, where we had to work with the public and even business owners to try to either reach a compromise or try to make a situation where everybody can come out feeling confident, feeling happy with what was left. This was a good process to be involved in. I have also been a member of the budget committee, getting an idea of how the city's finances work. And this was during a year when we had to make some pretty tough cuts. And on top of that, I'd have to say the mayor's visioning committee this last year gives me some wonderful experience. I believe that being a member of city council is not just being up here and helping to drive where the city goes. An essential part is listening to the public, listening to what they want. And throughout the process of the Mayor's Visioning Committee, that's exactly what we did. We listened to what the people wanted.
Number 4, what do you view as the biggest challenges or concerns facing Fairview in the next year and the next 5 years? Do you have experience facing any similar challenges?
So it's a year and 5 years? Over the next year, I would have to say, first and foremost, there are open positions on committees, Planning Commission and Parks Committee. Those need to be filled. We need to get people in those seats that have a passion for the city, have a passion for improving things. Probably right on the heels of that, I would have to say it's going to be budget time. We're coming up against another budget year soon. We'll be at the budget committee, will be meeting in April. And we're coming out of a recession, maybe not as fast as anybody would like, but I think this year is going to be another key year, and that we need to be fiscally responsible. We need to look at what we can do realistically and try to not go a little too crazy if there's extra money. I think those are important for the next year. Over the next 5 years, I would say developing out Fairview Village is key. Seeing the rest of it developed out to its potential. And extending beyond that to the commercial corridor along Halsey, extending from Fairview Parkway to 223rd. I think we have a wonderful start. On Planning Commission, we refer to both the bumpers and the car wash development, as well as Carlino's, as the things that we love to see in that commercial corridor. That is the style of architecture, that is the style of development that we want to see. I think it's going to be important to continue that through. The VA hospital, or the VA Medical Center that came before Planning Commission a few months ago, is another step in that line. I think over the next 5 years, I'd love to see the rest of the commercial corridor developed out to its fullest potential and extending beyond that to some of the other properties around Fairview to not only boost economics, but also improve the quality of life for the residents of Fairview.
Okay. Number 5. If appointed to City Council, what would be your top goals or priorities to accomplish during your tenure?
I think the first goal I would have would be to reinstitute some of the positions that we've lost throughout the last recession. We've had to make, every department has been cut. And I'm sure that if we were to go to every department, they would love to have one more person back. I don't believe we need to restore it to pre-recession levels of 2007 or 2008, but I'm sure I would love to see some responsible hiring or some responsible management going on to where we can reinstitute some positions, ease the workload on some of the employees here, because I know many of them are stretched. Another goal that I have, and this goes back to an industry standard in the housing industry, and that is, do you know what the difference is between a $300,000 house and a $400,000 house is? And the answer is simple. It's $20,000 in upgrades. You can do little things that add a bigger impact that far outpaces what you've spent. We've lost some things, little things, but through the visioning committee, we heard that they are important to people, such as the hanging flower baskets along Halsey or within Fairview Village. I heard a number of people, even when I was at the Fairview on the Green and mentioning what I was doing, they asked when it was coming back. It was a small thing that brought a lot of joy. I'd like to see things come back like movies in the park. One thing that personally meant a lot to me and some of my neighbors that I do know is there was a program where the mayor, city administrator, and some city council members would go to other parts of the city to meet with the residents. A couple years ago, you came to my area. I know for a fact that there were people along 205th Avenue north of Halsey that came over to join us that had never set foot in City Hall, never met a city administrator, never met anybody on city council. And I'm willing to bet that since that day, they haven't again. But that night they did. That night they got to sit and talk. They got to be heard. They got to ask questions. One of the joys of living in a small town such as Fairview is we get to do things like that. We get to give it that small town feel, and I think reaching out to the communities is important. And I'd love to see something like that come back.
Okay, and open question time for the council.
Okay, questions from the council? Yeah, Councilor Prom.
Hi, Keith. Hey, you mentioned that you would like to reinstitute more positions in each department. How would you plan on paying for that? Would you be dipping into reserves for that?
No, it would take a look at each budget area, at each budget year. You would take a look and see what the budget coming in versus expenditures are, and if it allowed, then go into if the money coming in was increasing every year, you take a look at that and make the hire from that. As far as dipping into reserves, while it's there, I take a hesitant look on that. It's always there, and it is a reserve for a reason, but I wouldn't do it as a first resort. I'd use it as a last resort. First resort, the first would be the tax money coming in and the availability of the funds coming in. And if we could hire more people, do it that way.
Okay, Councilor Barton Mullins.
Hi, Keith. Would you be willing to raise taxes a small amount, say $1 or $2 a month, to be able to ensure staffing of 16 full-time police officers?
There's a lot of variables in there, and I need more information to adequately answer that. For instance, are you looking at just doing a flat fee to everybody, or are you looking at raising 10 cents per $1,000 assessed value? That would vary depending on how your property value is and how much you pay. I think if it was fiscally responsible, I wouldn't be against it, but there's definitely more information there that I would need to know. One thing, okay, say we did do this, we did raise taxes a certain amount, and we hired a 16th officer. If we lost one officer, would we be obligated to replace that officer? That's something to think about as well. There's a lot of variables there, and I'm not entirely sure I could adequately answer that without those variables.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Owen.
Hi, hey, just wondering, do you have any ideas on how we as a group could improve the development, I guess the finish out of Fairview Village and kind of along the town center area?
Unfortunately, no. I wish I did. I would have definitely suggested something throughout my time on Planning Commission if I did. The best thing I can say would be to keep open to creative possibilities if we needed to, but remain open and keep an open mind, and maybe even, and I'm not even exactly sure how to accomplish this, but get word out, whether it be through personal channels with other jurisdictions or talking with businesses, just to, hey, we are still looking to develop this. This is not property we want to see sitting. Unfortunately, I don't have that great magic beanstalk in my back pocket. I wish I did.
Understood. Thank you.
Councilor Arnold.
Yes, Keith. You, just to kind of further talk a little bit more, being a member of the Budget Committee, we were this last year, and you talked about reinstituting some lost positions, and you talked about the budget process and looking at items more closely, line item by line item. So are you recommending a different budget process?
No, not a different budget process. But just remaining, I think that Fairview has done a very good job of maintaining their finances. Within my professional career, I do have contact with a number of jurisdictions, and I hear some horror stories here and there. And knowing what I know about Fairview, I think we're doing better than a lot, and possibly even better than most. I would like to keep that going. The hiring would have to come at a very responsible level. I'm not saying to just go out and go crazy and start spending money. The key is looking at what the money comes in, and what the money is coming in at looking like, and then responsibly acting on that. It's kind of a cautious approach, if you will.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Well, seeing none, thank you, Keith, very, very much. Appreciate your interest. And as I said before, we'll make a decision at the end.
Excellent. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hmm? The next is Garth Everhart.
He's not here yet.
Oh, he's not here.
He's not due till
Oh.
6:40.
Oh,
Yep, he just walked in.
okay. There he is. Welcome, Garth.
Thank you, Mayor.
Sorry, Garth, we're a little ahead of schedule.
No, that's fine. I just was sitting out there because I
Oh,
didn't know
good.
how it would go.
Great. So we have 5 set questions for
Great.
you. We have 20 minutes allotted. After the 5 questions, council will have an open question time, but we have full 20 minutes. So there's a timer so you can kind of keep track of your answers as we go. So the first question, please introduce yourself and detail why you applied to be on the Fairview City Council.
My name is Garth Everhart. I live at 954 Northeast Clear Creek Way, Fairview, Oregon. My primary motivation for applying for this position is I believe the vision that Fairview endorsed in the early 90s about transforming Fairview from a bedroom community to Portland and Gresham into a community with services and retail. I feel that we've drifted from that focus. We had a lot of success with Fairview Village. The city moved very well on Northeast Halsey to create a great-looking main street with Carlino's project and the Bumpers project. The city moved to help the Townsend Farm project to create the job base. But we haven't really done much since then. And so that's kind of my motivation, because I think as a developer, a longtime investor and resident of Fairview, I have some unique skills to help continue that, because Fairview deserves to have more retail and more services, and we deserve to continue growing. Thank you.
Great. Number 2, do you have any current or past business, personal, school, or organizational membership relationships with any of the current counselors? And if so, how do you feel the relationships will impact your decision-making process?
I have a bank account at the credit union, where Dan Creemeyer, Councilor Creemeyer, is the manager. I serve on PRAC. Until the end of the year, I served on PRAC. I'm not aware of any other relationships other than I'm friends with a number of all the counselors, and I've dealt with them through the years.
Great. Number 3, what experience or knowledge do you have that uniquely qualifies you for this position?
I have a degree in finance, and I work in investment and budgeting, which gives me a fair amount of expertise in budgeting, which is important to any city. As a developer, I've invested in projects across the Northwest, which gives me a lot of expertise in economic development, which is something that the city of Fairview is always trying to move forward with. I think those are my primary experiences in terms of city council.
Okay. Number 4, what do you view as the biggest challenges or concerns facing Fairview in the next year, the next 5 years, and do you have experience facing any similar challenges?
I think the biggest challenge facing Fairview is the budget. I've heard the mayor talk about compression. I think the property taxes are going up, and so hopefully there'll be more revenues. But ultimately, as I understand the compression, that's going to continue, and Metro and other agencies are struggling to take more of the pie, and unfortunately it's coming from our pie. Fairview's landlocked. It has limited natural resources, and one of those resources is vacant land. And I think the development of the vacant land to its highest potential is probably the only way that Fairview can survive over the long term without significant service cuts or significant fee increases or tax increases. That's kind of that long term. The other thing that I'm concerned about is the PERS issue. We read a lot about PERS, and every year the city gets they get like a 12% bump or demand last year in the last budget. I mean, our property taxes aren't growing that high. I mean, we really don't have that many ways to tax our citizens to make up these things. And one of the issues with PERS that has not even been addressed is the medical portion of PERS. We're being billed right now for the pension side, but as I understand it, reading the Cascade Policy Institute and some of these other papers coming out of Salem, is the medical side of this thing is a huge time bomb. And that's one of the things I'd like to see happen is the city go out and seek advice about what is the 5 and 10 year prognosis for PERS, so that we can start budgeting for it or preparing for it. That's my biggest concern, because if the revenues are flatline or slowly growing, but our costs continue to grow faster than our revenues, we have a problem. And this is not a problem. This is a problem that's facing all the small cities in Oregon.
Number 5. If appointed to the City Council, what would be your top goals or priorities to accomplish during your tenure?
Increasing revenue through property tax enhancements, working towards getting some of the vacant land. I've developed a lot of vacant land in Fairview. I'm good at it. And I'd like to see a lot of other vacant land in Fairview get developed so we get some revenues right now. That's our only resource right now that we can readily convert over the next 5 to 10 years to create revenues to offset this shortfall we all know is coming. We've discussed it in the last 2 budget cycles, and it is coming.
Okay, and open questions for the council.
Council, questions? Councilor Owen.
Yeah, Garth, just wondering, what ideas do you have to maybe kind of improve or spur development specifically along kind of Village Street and the commercial area in Fairview?
Wood Village pays for the SDCs and pays for permit fees. I think that's a useful thing. The VA thing is very interesting to me. It's right at our front door. That's a major intersection. I would love to see the city entertain the developer, have him come in, show us his proposal to the VA, and then ask him how he can change his proposal if we waive some of the fees to make that site more attractive. I would hate to see that VA clinic go to another location. We can regain fee income through property tax income. Right now, the property taxes on vacant land are very low in Oregon. There's really marginal cost for holding vacant land. So if we can reduce, if you had to give them a break on $50,000 of fees, you may get that back over 3 or 4 years, and then to me it's like a long-term bond. The sooner you get those property taxes coming in, they go up 3.5 or 2.5 to 3% a year, that money just keeps coming back. So there's also some regulatory reform I'd like to see. I'd like to see, as a developer, there are a lot of things that I have to do up front that really I shouldn't need to do until I get to the design stage. And those are costs to investments, to the developer. If we can make that initial phase easier, the city still gets the same outcome, but it reduces the cost and makes Fairview more competitive. And the bottom line is Oregon's struggling. I mean, we're the last one coming out of this recession on the West Coast. Washington, California are much more vibrant. And we have cities around us that are competing. I mean, as I read the Oregonian, Gresham waived all their tenant improvement permit fees, and they filled up some 200,000 square feet of retail space. Smart move. Mayor Smith is waiving fees, or the city's paying those fees. I'm not sure where Troutdale is, but I know they just cut their SDC on parks in half. I mean, all those things kind of spur development, and people can choose. I mean, land in Troutdale, Wood Village, or Fairview is pretty much the same cost. So it's those incremental costs to get it to a finished product that make a difference.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councilor Cremeyer.
Yeah, it sounds like from your earlier comments that you're all for a balanced budget. How would you prioritize the different categories to come in with a balanced budget? I mean, what would be the most important things to you in the budget that you would not want to
Public
cut first.
safety and public works, the city of Fairview provides base services, water, sewer, things like that. We all need that. For us to operate our homes and to live here, we need water, we need sewer. Public safety is important. And I guess this is my weakness. I really think that Fairview needs a planner. You know, like we used to have a director as a planner, and Alan Berry's done a great job. But you know, public works takes a full-time job. I mean, how could it be a full-time job for the last 30 or 40 years? We had full-time planner, full-time planning director, and full-time public works director, and suddenly we've combined the two. It's an awful lot to ask of anybody. It's okay in the interim. We've done that in the interim when we've had directors leave. But I think the city has to put a priority on planning. If we're going to capture our future, we need to plan for our future. And Alan's good at it, but he has to choose. I mean, every day he's got 40 hours in a week that he's got to choose between what he's doing.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Barton Mullins.
Hi, Garth.
Hello.
Would you be willing to raise taxes a minimal amount, say $1 or $2 a month per household, to be able to ensure staffing of 16 full-time officers?
If I felt that that would increase public safety, I would consider it. I'm not sure if it would. We have 15 officers for roughly 9,000 people. Troutdale has 24 officers for 16,000 people. We have twice the land area. Right now, based on those calculations, there are 660 residents in Troutdale to every police officer, where we have 600 residents to every police officer. I'm not sure if a 16 officer is needed. I also do the math, and I don't know why we've gone from 10 officers to 15 officers in the last 8 years, because nobody's working. I don't know how they're working their hours, because there's only, 168 hours in a week. So when I play with math, I don't quite understand that. If somebody independent came to me and said, you know what, this is the level you need, but right now we don't have any independent public safety report that says we're understaffed or overstaffed. I just know that comparing Fairview to Troutdale, we have, 2/3 the number of their officers, and they're almost twice our size in land area, and they're almost twice our population. I'm not sure yet.
Thank you.
I would need an expert to tell me where we are.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you very much, Garth.
Mayor, Council,
It's
thank
great.
you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Okay, next is Ted, and I know I'm going to murder your last name. T-O-S-T and... Okay. Thank you, and I'm sorry.
Osterud.
Okay.
In Norwegian is Osterud.
Ah. Well, welcome.
Good evening, Council. I have to apologize for my cold and my cough, but I have enough Kleenex and paper towels. I had to go resupply myself. So I can't get rid of this thing. I'd like to find someone I can give it to.
Welcome, sir. Question number 1. Please introduce yourself and detail why you applied to be on the Fairview City Council.
My name is Ted Tosterud. I've lived in Fairview since 2002. I moved here from Park Rose, and I have always been interested in city government. When I was in Park Rose, I was working with Mary Lou Betke, and she convinced me I should run for state legislature, so I went to them and I got interested in it, and then I found out how much work it would be, and my business constraints just took me away from it. I retired from a large medical laboratory, Quest Diagnostics, in December of 2012, I remember the year, after 46 years, and I now have the time. I don't have the experience that many of the other people up here at the table have had as far as working with council and city issues, but I have an enormous amount of business acumen and experience, which I'll go through in the next question. I want to jump ahead.
Thank you. Number 2, do you have any current or past business, personal, school, or organizational membership relationships with any of the current counselors? And if so, how do you feel the relationships will impact your decision-making process?
Well, being a newbie, I don't have any, so that's easy.
And number 3, moving quickly, what experience or knowledge do you have that uniquely qualifies you for this position?
Well, first off, I have owned and operated 2 medical laboratories in Portland and Beaverton back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and a pharmacy for 13 years down on 25th and Lovejoy. And then in 1988, I merged with Nichols Institute, which was a large medical laboratory, which further down the road became Quest Diagnostic, which is now a $7 billion entity. So I have a lot of experience. My qualifications are that I was a director of operations. I was responsible for huge budgets, all of the clinical testing in Seattle and Portland. I had to travel weekly to Seattle. My wife didn't really appreciate that. In fact, for a year I had to travel to San Diego because I ran one of their laboratories down there. So I'm very keenly aware of all the problems that you folks are running into with budgets, trying to do cost reductions, trying to still meet services of the citizens, and we always are looking to explore new ways to do that. One of the things that we used was a tool called Six Sigma, process improvement, where we had to squeeze more out of folks and are critical to quality, going to the consumers, going to the public and finding out the voice of the customer, what do you really want? And I'll get into your question about the property tax, raising the property taxes, because I already figured out what questions you were going to ask, and I already do have my answers, okay? But anyways, using those, I've had a very, very successful career. And this is, again, the other reason that I wanted to get into city government, because I just can't sit home and do nothing. Kathy Toynbee from Mount Hood Foundation, I've known her for about 4 years, and she said, well, I have a job for you out there. You can become a director out there, and you can help with scholarships and the kids. So I jumped on that, and that's what I'm doing now. And I'm going to put a plug in. I'll get in trouble, but we're having our auctions April 26th. The gala is out at the Red Lion, and I'll bring you a brochure. We can always use extra dollars to help the kids.
And number 4, what do you view as the biggest challenges or concerns facing Fairview in the next year and the next 5 years? Do you have experience facing any similar challenges?
When my job with the laboratories was constantly doing reductions, cost reductions, staff reductions, because revenue was always going down. We only get paid from third-party payers and Medicare, and they continue to reduce our revenue coming in the door. So we have to find new ways to meet the testing requirements, keep the quality up, not lose anything, and continue to move forward with our business and grow at the same time. One of the things we are is that our leadership team, we were all in sales, whether we knew it or not. We had to go out and sell our business. When I was a kid and owned the medical laboratories, my reputation alone sold my business, and I grew. But it got to the point that it got bigger than one person could handle, and I really didn't want to try to move forward by myself, so I merged in with another company, and that was the smartest thing I ever did. I'm not ever regretting that. But in order for me to improve the issues that you folks are facing, and I've looked at a lot of them, it's trying to raise more revenue for the city with only 9,000 people. That is a tough job. It's going to be very difficult. You can sell that to people. I believe in, well, I'll save that for my number 5, okay? I'll quit there.
Okay. And number 5, if appointed to City Council, what would be your top goals or priorities to accomplish during your tenure?
Well, going back to the other one, I'll try to wrap it all into it. The economic growth and development fits in with budgeting. A budget is an entitlement, is not an entitlement, but when you have just so many dollars coming in, you have to live very, very tight to a budget. You have to watch your spending. You have to be very, very careful with what you spend. Some things you can get away with cutting if it doesn't cut services too much, but others, when we look at laboratory work, we have to keep our quality up. quality of the citizens of Fairview look to this group to make sure that that's maintained. That's really what the job is. And then trying to sustain it over a long period of time. Okay?
And open question time for the council.
Council? Yes, okay, Councilor Owen.
Yeah, Ted, so I mean, you know that this is an appointed position
Right.
through the end of this year. Have you given any thoughts about, wanting to do this on a more permanent basis as far as running in the next election?
If I were to get this position, I know right now I would like it. Yeah, I would run next year. I would run next year. I mean, I'm not working now.
Sure.
I have a couple of little consulting companies that I'm playing with, but I'm an entrepreneur. But I would run.
Okay, good, thank you.
I need a little help.
Got it.
Not understanding the total process of how you get reelected. Your book that you read, I looked that up.
Okay, Councilor Prom.
Hi, Ted. Say, I'm really interested in that Six Sigma process. We'll have to talk maybe later about this, but the question is I have for you tonight is trying to raise revenue versus cutting services. In general, what do you think would be more important?
Say that again.
Raising revenues versus cutting services.
I'll relate it back to what we do in our business, or the business that I was in. We had to cut revenue. We had to cut services because the revenue was going down, because the third-party figures were dropping it. You're in chiropractic, so you understand that, okay? And so we had to give people, we're using Six Sigma, we had to give them more work to do, more tools, though. We didn't necessarily just pile it onto them. Everybody got a laptop computer. They could take it home. Well, we knew they were on salary and they were going to have to do a little bit. We couldn't get it all done during the daytime. I mean, we couldn't have done the work that we were doing now, that I just came from, unless we had the tools and the software to be able to make our job easier so that we could get more done and be more productive. But that's really what it's all about. That's what you have to do. It's a game changer. Difficulty in business, but everybody has to do it. And I was very fortunate to have really good teachers. When Ken Freeman brought in Six Sigma to Quest, because he knew putting two large laboratories together would not work unless we had something to keep the quality up. And we really worked hard on that. I hope that's an answer to your question.
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Cremeyer.
Thank you for coming this evening. I got two questions for you.
Sure.
First one is, how do you feel coming from the private sector about public-private partnerships on economic development first? So go ahead, you can go ahead and answer that one, I guess.
First off, you have to partner. I mean, you've got public and you've got private, and you have to sell. As I just heard, there's a lot, and as a newbie, I don't know all the issues. I would have to come up to speed. But if you have a lot of vacant land, you have to make it work for both the developer and for the city of Fairview. You have to partner with them in order to get what you want. And what I had to do in my business, I had to go out and meet with the physicians, meet with the hospitals, and partner with them. We would do some work for them, they would do some work for us. So together, we would further both of our goals. And I think once you get that going, and you get a few pilots going, other people will see it, and they'll want to jump in on it, because it looks like it's a good thing for them. Because there is a lot of business out here. You just have to find space for it. And there's people that want to go in business. I mean, I'm a resource for small business. I do this for my church. I go out to a lot of churches, and I help them get started with their financial program, because they've never done it before. So I kind of put them on the right track.
Okay, thank you. Then the second question I have for you is, what is your thought on if you have the resources coming from the private sector again, if you have the resources to retire bond debt, would you do so, or would you let the bonds run and pay the payments and the interest on that?
Well, does that depend on the market conditions? I mean, right now, as a retired person, I'm looking at bonds as a source of revenue for me. So I'm looking, when I go out and buy a bond or do a ladder of bonds for 5 years, and I look at the company, I really don't want them retiring. I don't want them calling it on me because I want that interest. But if I'm the other person and I am the owner of the bond and I'm selling it and paying the interest, depends on market conditions. If the interest rates are up, then I certainly want to make the right decision. But if the interest rates go down, then you have to look at it from both sides. And I'm trying to do that now as the income that I'm trying to live on. I'm trying to take, just because CDs are so low, I am looking at bonds on a ladder basis. But I don't want them called on me because I'm not worried about selling them off. I'm just worried about keeping them. But I think in business, they're looking at selling because if in fact I sold a bond to you and I'm paying you 3.5% and interest rates are way up, my bond's not worth very much. If I wanted to sell it, I would lose money on it.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Barton Mullins.
Hi, Ted. All right, are you ready for my question?
I'm ready.
All right, you've heard it, 4 times now, so would you be willing to raise taxes a small amount, say $1 or $2 a month per household, to be able to ensure staffing of 16 full-time police officers?
Well, first off, I believe in public service. I think Six Sigma can get involved in, because I just heard the speaker before me talk about we may have a problem with having more officers than what we need for the number of the level that we have. That could be looked at. But to answer your question, I would support myself personally a tax increase to make Fairview more safe for the people. But now you have to sell it. You can't just go out to people and say we're going to raise taxes because we're going to add an officer. I think you have to go out to the people. And that's my number 5 down here. My number 5 was meeting citizens' expectations. That, again, is part of Six Sigma, by going out in small groups, neighborhoods, and talking to them, letting them know why we're going to raise taxes $1.25 per thousand on their house. Because we believe, once we've done the analysis, that this is the best thing for Fairview's safety and for parks and for what we're going to spend the money for. You have to sell it. You got to be a salesperson. You just can't raise it and say, here it is, folks, take it, because we have to do this. You have to sell it. And that's kind of what we had to do in the private sector. Every time we wanted a piece of equipment, we had to sell it to the admin people to say, hey, if we don't get this, we can't do this. But if we get it, we can decrease the costs, or we can provide better service to our patients.
Great, thank you, Ted.
Okay.
Thank you. Now, any questions from council? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much, Ted.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure.
Hang tight, and after we're all done, we'll make a decision.
Thank you.
Okay, next person is Mr. Ronald Murrow.
Good evening. Okay, you've been watching all this, so I'll just start with number 1. Please introduce yourself and detail why you applied to be on the Fairview City Council.
My name is Ron Muro, 21775 Northeast Lockenview Lane here in Fairview. The decision to serve in the community was probably done years and years ago. Ever since college, I've been involved in civic and charities to a great extent. And somewhere in there, I thought to myself, someday I'll be able to kind of retire and do something with the city. I think I have something to contribute.
Great. Okay, number 2, do you have any current or past business, personal, school, or organizational membership relationships with any of the current counselors? And if so, how do you feel the relationships will impact your decision-making process?
The only relationship I have is I do business with the credit union, and I'm sure that has no impact on this position.
I'm just a popular guy tonight, I tell you.
That's
Great
good news,
service, I
actually.
might add.
Thank you.
Number 3, what experience or knowledge do you have that uniquely qualifies you for this position?
Well, that's kind of one reason why I threw my hat in the ring, if you will. I started my life in the private sector, and as an early age, as a young man at 27, I was promoted to a corporate office of a Fortune 500 company, and worked my way up to being national sales and marketing coordinator, meaning I worked a product from concept to actually implementation in the field. 5 or 6 years later, decided to buy my own business, bought a failing grocery store here in the East County, and doing somewhere around $600,000 a year, and parlayed it to a multi-store operation, and at one time, a little under $6 million a year. So I have a family business operation background, a corporate background, and then I got a little crazy and decided one thing I did in the service, in the military, is I did a lot of teaching. And I said, you know, someday I want to teach. So I went back, and sure enough, and that's what I've done in the last 6 years, actually 6.5 years with Clackamas Community College, and the last couple of terms with Oregon City. And I'm still on their staff, but I plan to take my everlasting sabbatical soon. The last thing, which I think might be really helpful for me and for everyone else, I've been a mediator here for FLOPA, and I've taken Fairview Lake Property Owners Association, and it covers at least 4 homeowners associations. I've taken calls from a lot of other people who have gone on the website and called me, and I've done them as well. One thing we practice in mediation is to be completely neutral. So I think that's a real plus for me, and might be a plus for the city council. But that's the one thing I think I have to really contribute to this council.
Okay. Number 4, what do you view as the biggest challenges or concerns facing Fairview in the next year, the next 5 years, and do you have experience facing any similar challenges?
Well, as far as the next year, I'd have to say I'm too inexperienced to tell you what we need to do in the next year. Next 5 years, I've lived in this area, in the Fairview area, for, as my wife told me this evening, 35 years. And Fairview's been a sleepy little town up until about a half a decade ago. And now I have to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, you have a real gem here. And I'm not just saying that because I'm here tonight, regardless, win, lose, or draw, you have a gem. And I see a lot of commonalities with other places I've done business. We had a store in Lake Oswego. And believe it or not, we had this kind of the same problem that you did. Lake Oswego downtown was developed, but empty. And what I see with how many cities in East County that border the Columbia River have riverfront property, that to me is a real plus. Lake Oswego had a real tough time until they developed the riverfront property, it was a bedroom community until they changed their identity and thought about themselves as being really upscale. Kind of really cool, kind of really neat, and it really worked. Drive through Lake Oswego today and see what you see. Everything is really upscale. Never used to be that way. We have the possibility of doing that right here. I think look at the facility we're in here. I think as far as our neighbors to the east, the municipalities to the east, we have a lot going for us here. This city can really be a real hallmark for East County.
Number 5, if appointed to City Council, what would be your top goals or priorities to accomplish during your tenure?
Well, I think because of our space, I'm looking at it from probably a marketing standpoint, because that's basically where I've lived my life. Our space is limited, 3 square miles. But if we develop all of that property correctly, and look at ourselves as being kind of like a Pearl District, if you will, or could become that, not to that degree, but look at ourselves as upscale, a lot of more medium density housing where it's possible. And another thing is, to be able to get some of our services to other places. I really think that this Tri-City Council meeting you're going to have on the 13th, if I believe, is fabulous, absolutely fabulous. Because when we talk about increasing revenues, what's better than to rent out some of the excellent services that we have? And I lived in Troutdale years ago when I moved home to Oregon. They have a thing going, and we certainly have a great system. And there's a lot of area in between that could use a lot of our services. So I think it could be a real symbiosis to really help Fairview grow, even without outside of our boundaries.
Great. And open questions for the council.
Hey, council? Yes, Councilor Arnold.
So you mentioned in the 5-year plan that we have to do some development. What ideas do you specifically have on how to increase development?
Well, I wouldn't say that that's my forte. Again, I'm saying that riverfront could be a real linchpin for the image that we project, truly. And I think there's some discussion of trying to get a restaurant or some other facilities to take that over. It's really tough to bring in my opinion, it's got to be cost effective. I'm thinking more like a upscale condominiums would work, incorporated in there. That's what Lake Oswego did. It really, really worked for them. But I think once you get that going, and I think another thing, perhaps we aren't really touting what we really have. We've got Chinook Landing, pretty cool, and we have Blue Lake Park. Now, I realize that's metro driven, but I think we'd want to try and capitalize on the fact that that's within our boundaries, truly. I mean, that's a real selling point that Fairview has Blue Lake Park within our city limits.
All right, Councilor Cremeyer.
How do you feel about outsourcing services, like park maintenance or even police services for that matter? And you kind of hit on it a little bit about the Three Cities meeting about maybe not outsourcing, some of the things that we do here in Fairview, but maybe outsourcing some of our services to other municipalities. How do you feel about that?
Well, I have to be honest with you. We are unfortunately, have land boundaries that won't let us grow too much within our own. And if we want to keep revenue coming in, we have to do those things. And if we want to influence our community in East County, we have to keep doing those things. I've learned something in my industry that if you don't keep growing, you get smaller. The status quo doesn't get it in private business. You have to keep growing. Expenses keep going up constantly. Someone else alluded to that this evening about PERS and so forth. Expenses keep going. We've got to find different ways of revenue, but perhaps different ways of growing new revenue. And yeah, I do believe that we should, every inch of, anybody that's willing to take our services, and that brings to me public safety. I would just love to know, one of the things I've done for probably the last 20 years is I've volunteered and taught at Portland Community College on a vehicle dynamics class. Before you knew it, we had police departments coming in wanting to hear vehicle dynamics, the stable platform concept, because they were small police departments, didn't have their own training officers per se that had to do with any kind of vehicle. Anyway, that's, having said that and done that, I think the police department is another thing that we could truly expand our influence to other areas of the community. Did I answer your question completely?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, Councilor Owen.
Yeah, hi. Do you have any ideas on how we could further develop Village Street? So if you think about it, this area right out in front of City Hall, I mean, there's a lot of housing within that is vacant today. I know that there's been a number foreclosures that have occurred, and some of the buildings have never been occupied. You know, some of the businesses have been there since the beginning. However, there are a number that have turned over. But it seems like we've really struggled to try to not only have that occupied, but to further develop some of the corners that are adjacent to that area. So if you just had any ideas or thoughts on how we might accomplish that.
Well, if you're asking for specifics, I can't help you. If you're asking for how do you perceive yourself, that I can help you with. Truly, this city is only how they perceive themselves and the functions they do. In other words, I've seen our social calendar on the tree lighting, so on and so forth. I've always been one to think, for the most part, you start with a clean piece of paper every year. You do the same things, and I think if I'm not mistaken, we had a problem with the chili feed. If I'm not mistaken, we had planned it and then didn't plan it. It's great to have things, but it doesn't have to be every year, every time, every way. I think there's a lot of different things we can do to bring excitement to the community, but it has to be something kind of different every year. Now, you'll have your tree lighting every Christmas, that's great. But I think things like when you have our Thursday programs here, a car show, and really have a real car show. There's ways to bring people into this area to make it a point of destination. And maybe we're not yet. And it's kind of hard because, you know, we are who we are. And we're not the only city that's having this problem. And you can drive through downtown Gresham and you'll see a lot of vacancy. And I keep my eye open for it because I'm a business owner and I look for that. And we're having tough times, really tough times. But you know something? Like I had a boss that told me one time, the president of the company I work for, and he said, we don't want to hear about what we're not doing, because if somebody out there is selling what you have, well, then you have to take it from them. And that's the truth. That's why I do agree with the counselor. We do need to expand our services, collect more money by doing that. And that would solve our problem with 16 officers, wouldn't it? More income. That's what we need.
I guess just a follow-up question, and I'd asked it previously to someone else. So this is, you know, for the remainder of 2014. Have you already made a decision to run for the next election?
I am totally apolitical, okay? I have absolutely no reason, unless I had this position and really liked it and felt that we were really going somewhere, because I got a lot of things, for a guy that all my life I've ran in fourth gear the whole time. I've been involved in a whole bunch of things, a whole bunch of charities, Dornbecker Children's Hospital, been named a fellows there. I've worked for Snowcap, helped them before they ever had their building, feeding 150 families every Christmas through my grocery stores, of course. I have no desire to do that unless I thought we were making progress and I could participate. If I felt that I was holding you back, I wouldn't run for anything. And if I did run, my budget would be minuscule, because I don't believe that this is really what our nation or our city needs. We don't need a lot of lawn signs to prove that we can do the job. Through the state book or the county book that tells what your stances are, I think I would tell it first off. I have to tell you, and I'll tell you right here. A friend of mine who owns a real estate company in Gresham, he named me probably 25 years ago. He said, Ron, he said, you are socially liberal, but a fiscal conservative. That's what I am. And that's what I am. I believe that we have to do things to make our city do. We can't expect people to do things on their own that we can't. We can help and contribute to that socially. But fiscally conservative means that we make sure we get every dime that comes out of a dollar. We have to spend it. And that's where being a teacher has come in. Because I've seen the other side. I've seen what it takes to have, and I listened to my boss, and she would talk to me about expenses, and how they were going up. And the public sector continues going up. Okay. So we just have to make arrangements for it. So I have to think one of my forte is I've seen all three sides. I've seen corporate, I've owned a small business for 25 years, what I call a small business, and I've been on the other side as a teacher for a public school district.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Thank you very, very much. Welcome, and we'll see what happens. Good luck. Okay, next person is Brian Cooper.
Good evening, everybody.
Hi.
Good evening.
Good evening. Question number 1, please introduce yourself and detail why you applied to be on the Fairview City Council.
Brian Cooper, 765 Northeast Market Drive. I have been fairly active in the community for the last year specifically, ever since I was a counselor here in 2012. All the things that I've been working on with developing the Friends of Fairview volunteer group and taking over directorship of the festival, all that stuff is good. I just think would be easier from inside the system than from outside the system. And that's why I want to be back in the system. I do intend to run, to answer Steve's question, I do intend to run in November again, but this marks a opportunity to get back on sooner.
Okay. Number 2, do you have any current or past business, personal, school, or organizational membership relationships with any of the current counselors? And if so, how do you feel the relationships will impact your decision-making process?
I have a couple personals. I have beers with Steve every so often. Mike has helped me with the Chili Festival. Lisa has helped me with the litter pickups. Other than that, that's about that, and I don't think any of those social actions would contribute in any way.
Okay. Number 3, what experience or knowledge do you have that uniquely qualifies you for this position?
Aside from being in business for 25 years and being a former counselor, and a lot of my activities throughout the city, attending meetings, I just think I have that type of mindset to research and come up with informed and well thought out solutions. I enjoy thinking outside the box and coming up with solutions to difficult problems.
Okay. Number 4, what do you view as the biggest challenges or concerns facing Fairview in the next year, the next 5 years, and do you have experience facing any similar challenges?
For the first year, budget's always been the elephant in the room. I haven't really been keeping up on this year's economic numbers for the city, but always budget process is a time-consuming, line-by-line trudgery. Police is always a concern. I know we were after a 16th officer, so those issues should surface this year. The fire study will probably be the big issue for this year, and I'm looking forward to seeing what's in that report. 5 years, I'm hoping in 5 years that we are almost virtually built out. There are some larger developments. I'd kind of like to get after the riverfront properties again. And I think my years of business and being a former counselor helps in that process.
Okay. And number 5, if appointed to City Council, what would be your top goals or priorities to accomplish during your tenure?
I got a bunch, but as far as probably the top 3, the biggest one is to really develop and expand on the public-private partnership role within the city. As the volunteer group, it'd really be nice to bolster and help fledgling volunteer groups really do what they are designed to do. They would be a fantastic resource for any city to have. I'd really like to revisit the riverfront development. there were some fairly key issues that really needed to be explored, like how to get through the dike, what utilities, and I think there were some very good questions that needed to be asked in the last year that just never surfaced. I'd also like to really dive into the business retention and expansion programs of the city. There is any number of things that we can do to help businesses flourish in this community. That's about it.
And number 6, open questions from the council.
Councilors, yes, Councilor Arnold.
Yes, Brian, thanks so much. It was great hearing your 3 ideas. Tell us a little bit more about your business retention and expansion ideas that you have.
I've written up several. Most of them are use of the website to market businesses. I think the biggest one is help smaller businesses market on a larger scale through East County and try to draw traffic to them. We already run a website, and it should be fairly easy to make it a marketing platform. There are several programs used in other jurisdictions that holds up a business, those who do really well within the community, and gives them awards, really recognizes those businesses within the communities that contribute. Those are probably the 2 biggest ones.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Thank you very much, Brian. And I'm sorry.
I just
Councilor
had
Cribb.
one question.
Oh, Councilor Owen. Go.
Back to this Fairview Village area, just because it bothers me just a little bit, in the sense that, of course, it's been out here, since, the day that we moved into this city hall, and of course, there's been this certain economic, issues that have happened all across the U.S., but just really interested in, do you have any ideas or suggestions on how this area here could, maybe get, revitalized or invigorated to actually, cause some excitement to maybe fill some of these buildings that are out here and maybe influence someone to take some of these corners that are still in dirt and actually kind of finish the vision that everybody had for Fairview Village?
Honestly, I think it hinges on the Halsey properties. Village has always suffered from the fact that nobody knows it's there. It's almost impossible to see from Halsey, so you can't draw people there. Really, we've always kind of hung the hat on that Providence would eventually start to build. Once Providence builds, Village is filled. I think they are a big enough draw to fill up everybody with supporting type businesses. What could we do to foster Providence's building? I don't know. I don't know what they need. I don't know what they want. The other property across the way, it would be fantastic when we start groundbreaking on that. I know there are some interested parties in that. But I think once you fill the Halsey properties, the rest is academic.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Barton Mullins.
Hi, Brian. I'm sure you've heard my question now several times. Do you want me to repeat it?
Yes, please.
All right. Would you be willing to raise taxes, a small amount, $1 or $2 per household, to enable and ensure staffing of 16 full-time police officers?
Would I be willing to? Yes. But that would be dependent upon need. I don't think the need exists for a 16th officer. I think everybody wants a 16th officer. And I'm not sure the investment into a 16th officer would make Fairview safer. But I'm willing to look at numbers and be persuaded. But if the need does exist and it shows that Fairview is safer, then yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, well, thank you, Brian, very much. And next, Mr. Ted Kasakis. Did I pronounce it right?
He's not here.
Nope, it's not here.
Not here.
not here
Okay,
yet.
well, that's good. I didn't know what he looked.
Mayor moved to adjourn, or moved to have a little intermission.
Yes, excellent idea. Let's take a 10-minute break here, okay?
Thank you.
He's not scheduled to speak until
Till
8.
Give him a call.
And maybe Renee too, huh?
Yeah, and Renee also.
I don't see her here.
Yeah.